Getting ready here, call the meeting to order. I hear a motion to accept the minutes of the October 12th, 2022 meeting.
So moved. Second.
Moved in second, and discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion is approved. Got the communication reports, the monthly operating report for October.
Yep. So as normal, if you guys have questions, just ask. The average flow was 2.5 million gallons a day. BOD and TSS were both 98% over removal efficiencies. We were 35 pounds under the nitrogen permit. And this was the last month for phosphorus and E. coli. Average phosphorus 2.19, and the average E. coli was under 5 at 4.1, which is non-detect. Any questions on that?
Last month you had that one E. coli test.
Yeah, so basically we ruled it as it was an error in the test. So we had nothing before, nothing after it. You can look at all the trending for the dosage and the UVT, and we had nothing out of the ordinary on that. So basically, if you have an error on a test, you would typically see it completely contaminated. And if you had one from the actual UV, instead of having 4 or 10 or 50, you might have, 100. But this was like off the charts. Like the whole packet was just blue. So it was almost, it wouldn't even look normal if it was contaminated. So it was definitely like a test error. So.
Now, as far as the UV, is that a year-round operation or yes?
No, we just shut them off October 31st. So we run April 1st for UV to October 31st and phosphorus as well. So only 6 months out of the year.
And we don't need
7, I'm sorry.
chlorine or anything substitute or anything?
No, even chlorine, we used to run the 6-7 months out of the year. Their determination is between now and April 1st, nobody is swimming in the river or shouldn't be.
Yeah.
So they're not really concerned about it. But even this time of year, we typically, if we sample, we don't get that much as it is because it's cooler out. So
that makes a difference.
yeah.
Just no need for it.
No. And that's all plants basically the state after October. Typically, we actually go a month later. Most plants are October 1st and we're October 31st. So we go a little bit longer in the year.
Okay, then we got the engineer report here for October.
Yep. So Tungus pump station, we had one fault on it. We reset it, ran fine after that. We just had a small amount of debris in it, and we actually cleaned the wet well this month as well. Oakland pump station, we installed a new pump finally. The motor and volute were also replaced. The one that came out, I think, was 24 years old. So we're going to rebuild that, new seals and bearings, and keep that as a spare. Batterson Park, we installed new stainless steel chains and O-rings. They just had links basically to pull it up, but we ended up putting a chain all the way up. It's easier to fish out when we have to pull them. It's never at a convenient time, so it makes it a little easier for the guys. We put a new pump at the Hyde Road pump station, and the existing pump there is also going to be sent out and rebuilt. That pump is about 15 years old. West Farms, we repaired the permanganate line, just had a small crack in it, and we just add the permanganate there. It pumps up to the Batterson Park pump station, just helps with H2S, any corrosion in the line, helps with odors. So we've been running about tote every 2 to 3 months. So it's about 275 gallons every 90 days. And then once we do the upgrade at West Farms, we're going to have 1,000-gallon tank there. So that'll be something we can permanently pipe in there. Pump station upgrades and collection systems. We finished the roads we did last month. We had started those in September, so we finished most of them. We helped highway in jetting the drains in the garage. They get leaves and a bunch of dirt in them. We continued to camera and look for problem areas. We cambered the influent vault. We moved the sampler tubing a little bit. It was getting caught up. There's a little lip on low flows on the line coming in. So we moved it, cambered it just to see, and it's been working pretty well since. We worked with highway cleaning out storm drains and using the camera to help identify problem areas. Repairs and maintenance, flushed all the grit lines and cleaned the vortex in preparation for winter. We put new batteries in all the UPS for the INC panels. Fabricated new support brackets for the headworks water lines. Those are for the screeners, so when they turn on to clean the rags, we get a little water hammer from the pressure. So that just helps it from moving a little bit. We ran all the effluent pumps before the winter just to make sure if we had a high storm event or if we had snow melt, they're ready to go. We pumped out the flow meter vaults. We did this before we had the confined space training. I have the pictures in there too. We have a new truck on order, and then we changed the transmission fluid in the 150 and tried to fix a hole that was in the rear panels just to kind of rot it out. The 150 we're going to keep for a couple other years. 250 we're also going to keep, but the new one should be in a couple months, hopefully.
New pickup.
Yeah.
That's what they gave you with 2 months?
Yeah. Well,
Really? Well,
yeah.
yeah. Good luck, yeah.
So highway had ordered one, they got it after 14 months. So
14 months? Because I knew that they were waiting for our police cruisers for a year.
yeah. So the only difference was they got a 350 gas. We got a 250 gas. And they told me now if you upgrade through Ford, if you upgrade to a 350 or like an XLT, there's some federal selection process where they select how many trucks go to each state. So you can put in your order and they can call you in 6 months and say, hey, your order's in, but only 600 trucks went to Connecticut and you weren't approved. So then you have to put in another order. So we went with the 250, which is more than enough for towing a generator out to stations and stuff.
Right.
So
Did it come through Gengris or how?
Yeah.
Did it,
yeah, it comes through Gangris.
Yeah.
So, which actually it seemed the easiest route because we didn't want to wait that long. And there's really no benefit between the 250 and the 350 for us.
The dual wheels or?
It's just 18s on all of them. I think it'll tow like 11,400, which is plenty. We have our crane trucks, a dually, that's a 550. And this, I think we got an 8-foot plow with it as well. So it'll do everything we need it to. I said we were under the nitrogen permit by 35 pounds. Keep using the fermentation tank. It's basically worked all year. And as I said before, we shut the phosphorus and the UV off October 31st. We also had confined space training with plant and Yukon Fire Department. We try to do it every couple of years just because they're the ones that respond if we ever have an issue. So this was just a picture of us. They had basically their whole crew down. This was the effluent meter vault. So that's where our flow meter is for the effluent. So they just go down, we practice confined space entry. So then they're familiar with some of the places in the plant. We kind of meet the crew and vice versa. So it works out well. These were the 2 end of year phosphorus charts I included. So the red line is our limit, it's 2.79. The green line is where we averaged the entire year, which is 2.1, somewhere in that range. So when you see the blue spikes above the red, it doesn't mean we were above permit because it's a rolling average. So that was our yearly average under the permit. And then this was the final cost for the polyaluminum chlorite, which is, it was about, I think it was 12,900 for 2022. And you can see when we put the hybrid tank online about 1.5 years ago. So we had the initial drop. We got a little lower this year. I think there's a little room to finagle, but this is, I mean, it's good. You can see the reduction in costs. Any questions on that?
Not related to that. I remember talking about earlier.
Yep.
With the cost of diesel and stuff like that.
Yep.
Are you know, encouraged or whatever to look over the budget to see if there's any areas that we may have to
For gas or like chemicals or both?
for anything, you know, because
Yeah, so electrical, we had put more in the budget. Gas, I think I put in, I have to look right. I want to say it was like 10 or 15,000 extra, which is pretty easy to calculate because it's only around town for stations and our vac truck is most of the diesel costs. chemical costs for the plant, other than the pack, we're really not using anything. We have the micro C if our flow gets really low and there's not a lot of food coming in, we can just kind of offset it. But really, we're talking about 2,500, 3,500 gallons a year, which for this plant is minimal.
Mhm.
The pack cost did go up about 40%. The micro C in 2 years did go from, it used to be I think it was $2.93 a gallon. It's like $5 a gallon now. So everything has gone up, but we're using such a small amount that it's not too bad. And those are the only chemicals we have on site other than polymer.
Okay. Then I think you mentioned last meeting or one before about the sludge disposal.
Yep. So that increased as well. MDC, where it goes in Hartford, has increased ash disposal costs. So really HI Stone, their increase was hauling for diesel and then the ash disposal. So they got hit for both. So there's not much we can do about it. It went from 78 per ton to 112. So,
Accumulate,
78 to 112.
yeah,
So 25%.
yeah, it's 28%, give or take.
so cumulative as far as what the impact is on the budget. I mean,
Yep.
we've got enough.
Yeah, so what we did was, I mean, the extra 100, 200,000, we were able to kind of move around because we have excess built in for the most part. So we took some out of chemicals because we're not using as much. We took some out of nitrogen credits because we're not paying any. And then anything else that we have, we can pull out of the other accounts if need be. But as of now, we're fine because we budgeted for it.
What's the latest? And we haven't talked about the Avon, the flow meters, and
It's been fairly quiet. They had the only like 2 really updates was a couple months ago. The contractor was doing some work where the breaker was for the golf course meter. They had a ditch witch and they cut the line. So we had to go out. Our electrician actually patched it. I think they still have to bury it better before the winter. But other than that, it's been quiet. They had some grease in the crocus partial flume. So they cleaned that out. Other than that, it's just been the typical billing. The flows have been low. So haven't had any complaints yet.
And no problems with the meters.
No. The only issue was the one at Crocus, but when you have the partial flume, you're shooting down 2/3 into the flume. So if you put a rock under the transducer, your flow is obviously going to go up, even though your flow is not up. The beam is hitting something. So instead of going down to the water, it's thinking the water's higher. So once they cleaned that out, they were back to a normal range. So.
as far as our fog program.
Yep.
You know, not too long ago, we used to always have blockages and stuff like that.
Yep.
Are you finding that that's less now?
It's definitely better. I mean, I think a lot of it is our crews are out. I can't say every week, but they're out probably at least two weeks out of the month jetting. So when we do the streets, we try to go to the problem areas at least 4 times a year. Some are 2 times a year. We have a list where we know there's like a low point or a dip, or where M&R Liquors is because of Starbucks, Naples, there's always grease there. So we jet those before the holidays. We haven't had that many problems. The fog does make a difference. So myself or Brian, or if we're not available, the operators go out. I'd say we average probably 5 to 10 a month for the fog inspections. So we try to do them every 2 years. We do the whole town. So we do stay up to date on that. I usually just don't include it because it's just the inspections, but.
And the properties with sewer permits.
Yep. So most of these were all fees collected with the permit and paid for Yorkshire Courts buildings 5 through 20. So it was 21, 18, 19, 20, and 5. And that was it, except for just existing sewer repairs, which is Talcott, Walnut Farms, and Lyle Court.
It's Yorkshire Court, that's up Middle Road, that's,
Yes.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah.
Any questions on the reports or the summary report?
Okay, any new business? unfinished business.
Oh, I did get my letter, Mark, from the town of Plainville.
Resolution or,
Yes, that's
okay,
saying that I'm gonna be built from the town of Farmington.
okay. Yeah, I had to, I called them and I called Farmington as well, because I guess that was a new thing that they were going back and forth with. But as long as you got it.
Okay, any other business? Anything, any questions, Jennifer?
No, the only question I was needing to dust my brain off a little bit around is the thresholds for the initial redust and everything. So the walkthrough on the phosphorus and how you think about that, Mark, was pretty helpful.
Yep.
If there's other context like that, in the future, I'll bring that up earlier on in the conversation, but.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, do you have any questions on it or just?
Well, let me just play what I think just to play back what I remember
Yep.
being the case for some of these. The minimum and maximum that is the threshold, kind of the bar between what we should expect to see under and over. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, so the red line is our permit from the state. So
Oh, no, sorry. I meant back on page,
this one.
nope,
Or-
like page 3.
Oh, you're on
the chart. Yeah, yes, that.
Yep.
Yeah, so the minimum and maximum, that's the range that we should be looking at. Is that correct?
So basically where you see the 2.79 right here, this is
Mhm,
our limit from the state. So
mhm.
the min and the max, we only report our average phosphorus. So
Okay,
this is our average for the whole month. The whole year we were about 2.1. So we sample once a week, every week of the month, and then they average those 4 to give us the total.
thank you.
Yeah, the other ones, like for the flow, that is our min and max. The BOD and the TSS, the minimum and the max, like those are all the same. So some of them, correct, they have a min and max, and other ones are just your actual averages for the month.
Okay, got it. That's super helpful.
Yep.
Thanks for asking, Jim.
So, as far as any other changes in any of the testing or the,
Yep.
did you see anything, the state talking about any new requirements or anything?
So the only thing I can see happening, which I will predict will happen, is they will probably want to lower the phosphorus permit. There's been some talk of them wanting to put limits for aluminum, but aluminum is what we use. Like if you use aluminum sulfate or polyaluminum chloride, which is PAC, which is what we use, very small amounts because we have the fermentation tank. But if you're using any of that, it's aluminum. So if they put a limit on that, they're going to limit the chemical that you use to limit phosphorus. So I don't know if that's going to be in 5 years or 15 years, but I know it's happened in other states. So I can kind of see it coming down the line, but I don't know as how low they're actually going to take the phosphorus. There's certain limits you can go to biologically, and then there's just certain limits you get that unless you have chemical, you're just not making the permit. So we're kind of waiting to see what we get.
Is there a certain time of year that they announce those limits? Or?
So I submitted, it was 107 pages for the permit renewal in September. To put in perspective, the last time we submitted it, it took 6 years to get the new permit. So I might have it by 2028 or 9, and it's no exaggeration. It's just the amount of time it takes. So, and then we had to do a biodiversity study for mussels they found in the river. So it just takes a long time.
So to follow up on that, if they lower the permit amount,
Yep.
Do they tell you what tech you need to apply to reach that? New number?
No, it's pretty much, here's your permit and try to meet it. Yeah. I mean, there's plants that if you don't have an upgrade, you're just not going to meet it. Right. I mean, when I was in the private sector, my plant had a 0.35, which is pretty much, if you have soluble phos going through a filter, you're still gonna blow your permit. So we had membranes, we had some BioP, and we had alum, which is aluminum sulfate. And we made it, but there were still times that we didn't make it with a filter. So
What's the penalty for that, maybe?
typically, it's just a violation. They don't charge you for that.
They don't shut you down.
No, and I think they know some of it's difficult. Typically, the closer you are to the sound, the lower the permit is. But again, it's some plants get weird values. I don't see us going down there, but we'll see what they get.
Now, as far as the nitrogen and the trading
Yep.
credits, I know that's been up and down. What's the thought on that?
I gotta see, we just submitted a survey for it this year. I don't know what the cost is gonna be because they redo it every year. Typically on a year that has not a lot of rain or flows and more plants have credits, they put the cost down because they have to pay out more. When the flows are higher, the credits will be more because they're not paying out as much. I don't really know where it's gonna be, but I mean, this year we should be easily like a couple $1,000s back. So it's like more than 2,000 or 3,000.
Because I mean, there was even talk about either discontinuing the program.
Yeah.
But then you won't see that happen.
I don't see them discontinuing it yet. And again, it differs too, because a lot of plants we're going off of, and I think I've shared with you guys before, they would spend $80 million on a D-Night upgrade and they'd be selling, $600,000-$700,000 a year of credits, which politically looks great. But if you spent $80 million, your plant's got to go 120 years without maintenance to pay it back, and it's never going to happen. But nobody talks about that. So it depends. We just submitted the survey. We should know by January what we're going to get paid for that, but we've been under every month, knock on wood. So we only have 2 more. We should be good.
Okay. We're here, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
Second.
moved in second, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
All right.
Aye, motion carried. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you,
Nice to see
Jennifer.
Thank you, guys. See you soon.
Have a good night.